38. Or go to followthesmartmoney.com now. That's 800-630-4838. Or follow the smart money.
Yeah, commercials now.
Somebody has their radio on. Please turn it off.
The weekly oil inventory.
I'm just going to go through and start muting. Just going to mute everybody that's not a staff member or board member for the moment.
Boy, a lot of people are.
So are we all present? I think present and correct. I think we are.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right. Can each of the board members speak to make sure we can hear you?
I'm here.
Sarah?
You don't hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Maggie?
Okay.
Can't hear you, Maggie.
Good morning.
Okay, there we go. Jason?
Yes, sir.
Joe? Joe's muted. Okay, now, Joe, can you hear me?
Joe's gone. Joe's back.
Joe, can you hear us?
Joe Leahy, where are you?
Can't hear you. His sound is not working. Let me call him.
Yeah, he's not muted.
I don't have any sound.
All right. Well,
I've gone in 3 times. I'm about to go in the 4th.
all right.
We can actually hear you now.
We can hear you now.
I can't hear you. Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Ron,
Through the phone, probably.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
So you can hear me through the phone, I guess.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's stay on the phone then. I'll put you on speaker.
Okay, thank you.
We can
Alright.
hear him, Ron, so you don't have to put him on the speaker.
What?
We can hear Joe.
Yeah, but
so
he
you don't
can't
have
hear. He can't hear us if we ask him a question.
Right, so you can leave him on your phone, but not on the speaker, so we won't have an echo. I
Maggie,
hear, okay, that's fine, whatever.
trust me.
Mhm.
All right. You okay, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good.
The echo, okay,
All right. So can we start now?
never mind.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending this morning's workshop. We have a few things to discuss, and as usual, if there is time at the end, we will open the meeting up for questions. The COVID-19 situation has not significantly changed, although around the country and overseas there is sure evidence of an upward tick. Florida seems to have bottomed out and shows worrying signs of starting to tick up again. We must continue to be vigilant, and our plans are all designed around doing just that. While the board will not encourage or sponsor any activities in the clubhouse, we have reached out to leaders of the groups with serious interest in restarting activities so that we can gauge the true interest. The board, together with management, have put together a list of conditions which will be imposed on any groups wanting to start up activities, and all participants will be required to sign a COVID-19 waiver. We will still have a policy of no visitors allowed in the clubhouse or in any of the other common areas where activities take place. We've also requested of returning snowbirds to follow recommended guidelines when they return. Okay. Anybody got any comments on the 19 situation? All right, county waste collections vendor. Jason, you want to talk to that?
Sure. We sent out a message on it the other day, just kind of giving an initial update on it. But I wanted to talk about it a little bit because there's questions, and something that the residents need to know and hopefully understand is the fact that we as the association, our communication with Waste Connections is from a business standpoint. So there's 2 sides to Waste Connections. One of them is the business and commercial pickup, and the other side is the residential pickup. As the association, we're considered a business, and that's who when we receive information regarding pickup or changes in schedules, that's the information we receive. And they will tell us, instead of being here on Thursday or Wednesday or whatever day they come, they're not going to be here on that day. They're going to be here on another day. And we communicate with them regarding that. That's the same information. Like, I know at my home, if Waste Connections is not going to be there, or they're canceling service due to rain or holiday or something, I receive a robocall or an email here and there. But we do not get that as the association. So if any of the residents receive that, we ask that you send it out or let us know, and we can put it out immediately. But until someone calls us and says, hey, my garbage wasn't picked up, or these guys aren't here, we don't have any information coming in saying, hey, they're going to be late. So that's the first thing on it. So any resident that notices something like that, if they let the clubhouse know, we'll get that information out as soon as possible so that more people can be aware. We just don't, it's not a situation where we get a call or email or information from Waste Services saying, hey, we're not coming today, we're changing to this date. We don't receive it. We receive it for the commercial side. We do have a contact with the commercial side. He has been very good about reaching out to the residential side whenever they have an issue, but there is delay in that. So we have been given other contacts over at Waste Connections to send information to when we have like a leak or something. I've sent letters to 2 different county commissioners, as well as the management for Waste Connections. I've been guaranteed that they, over 2 weeks ago, they were going to clean up. And they're coming out to clean up oil spills. I don't know how their schedule works with that, but they're supposed to come and clean up after their own oil spills in the property. The one thing he did promise me over the phone was that from now on, before they come in the property, they would pull over on the side of the road in the grass, make sure the truck wasn't leaking. That way, we can mitigate any type of issues like that. Unfortunately, if a truck breaks down inside the property, it's going to cause a leak, but their guys are supposed to notify him so he can send a cleanup crew over immediately and take care of it. They're aware of the leaks that they caused in the community, and they're supposed to take care of them. But as far as future issues taking place like that, if you see something in your individual product, like if the person picks up your garbage and there's a leak right there and it's not anywhere else in the community, you can call Waste Connections directly. We sent out that number the other day and complain. And the reason I say that is because you have just as much power as we do with Waste Connections. If they've messed up your yard, they're going to come take care of it. You can contact the clubhouse and let us know that you had that issue, and we will reach out to our contact as well and send information to them.
I've dropped off. So if you just set me back up.
We can hear you. So.
All right, great.
You're good on the.
Thanks.
Yeah. Listen, Joe. Right.
Yeah, you're good, Joe.
I don't know whether he can hear us or not. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we're working now. Okay, good.
So as far as that is concerned, Waste Connections is not a vendor that the HOA or the association or any of the management at any point in the term that South Shore Falls has been here. It's not a vendor that you choose. It's somebody the county chooses, and it's a county vendor that everybody in the area deals with. So if you see, that phrase is being used so much lately. If you see something, say something. But the reality is, if you do see something in your front yard, let us know and we'll contact them, and you can contact them as well. That number that we gave is a good contact information for Waste Connections to file a complaint if they did something wrong. But that vendor is not somebody that they're a county entity. They're controlled by the county public works department. Like I said, I've sent 2 messages to 2 different county commissioners asking for assistance, and they've responded, and they're, saying they're getting on. I just don't know. Each individual time it's going to be a phone call to them. I imagine if Waste Connections continues to get complaints as a whole across the county, they would look at changing them. But the county commissioners have not responded to me as of yet.
Jason, can I add to that?
Sure.
In regards to the last episode on Saturday, where Ron actually followed one truck, I believe, that he said was not leaking. However, there were another truck, the recycling truck, actually that ran on my street, when it picked up our recycling bin, it was leaking. And so I did place that call, and that Brandon Dahl, he
Yeah,
was very nice. He came out, he investigated. And they did, I wanted to just follow up because I just saw this morning where someone questioned whether or not the roads were going to be cleaned up and if they were all going to be cleaned up.
mhm.
They were on Shell Falls on Monday afternoon around 1 or 1:30. But their truck, the truck that was cleaning up the mess, broke down as well. So I have not seen them back in the community since, although I didn't really, look for them yesterday, but I think they are on top of it, just for the residents to know. But as you said, like even on the event on Saturday, when you all are not in the office, even if we call the office, you all are there to call. So the residents are better off to call and make that complaint. The more complaints,
Absolutely.
the more likely they are to address the issue.
And that's exactly what I mean. If 6 of you call and complain about it, they're going to rush over. We're the same as one resident calling. When the association calls, we're literally one resident calling. If the residents who are affected are calling as well, they're going to get on it. They're going to see that there's a major issue. And that's the only reason we ask. And if we're calling on Monday for a Saturday issue, and again, it's not a matter of putting anything on anyone else. It's just, there is an opportunity if there is a leak for the residents to make a complaint, because that is the county, and that is a county organization that field those complaints and take care of them. And the faster and the more people that complain, the more you're heard, the quicker they're going to respond to it.
Exactly. And Brandon did, even before he came to my home on Saturday, he had already drove through the whole community, confirmed he saw the leakage from that. It was too fresh, so again, hopefully, now I dropped off. Hopefully, they'll stay on it and
Yeah.
move forward.
They're not unwilling to respond. It's a big entity. It's a big monster that they've got to get moving. So it's not a matter of them not caring. They've got the entire county they're doing.
Exactly.
We did send out the phone number yesterday, and it is posted on the website. So any resident who wants to have the number, it's there. Any other things regarding that? Sarah, you want to talk about the auditors?
Yes, several things I wanted to cover. First off, that we do finally have the audit for 2019. And I would like to go ahead and post that on the website since it's so late in the year already.
I think we have to approve that at the board meeting,
Right,
and then
I'm
it can
just
go
saying
up,
we do
right?
finally have it.
Okay, so let's submit that for approval at the board meeting, and then it can go up on the website.
Great. And I have talked with other CPAs and CPA firms because last year we didn't get the audit until July. And this year I didn't get the preliminary audit until August. And that's just really too late. Come on. So I have a proposal from one of the CPA firms that I talked to that I will put in the board packet for our board meeting. So perhaps we could change, save a little bit of money and get more timely information.
You taking any references on these guys?
I just looked them up on the Better Business Bureau, and that's all.
All right. Jason, can you reach out to some of the other castle groups and see whether they've used these people, Gladstone?
Gladstone, yes, I can.
Yeah.
I'll
Well,
send
I
out.
went through Steve Needleman to get some
Yeah.
recommendations. He's head of Castle Accounting.
Yeah,
And,
All right. Did Steve Needleman recommend these people to you, Sarah?
yes.
Okay, so then obviously there's
So I'll
something
check
good
with
there.
some of the other ones too.
May I ask a question, Sarah?
Yes.
When you're reaching out to these new CPA firms, can we not stipulate a deadline, like we want it at least by the end of the first quarter of the following year? I mean, I
We
don't
can't get
think,
it that fast, Tammy, forget that. But I would like to have it like May or June. everything takes so long to get processed because, well, just now we now have a brand new accountant assigned to us at Castle Home Office. So now I've got somebody brand new to work with. I've never worked with before, don't know anything about them. And I'm still trying to get July financials corrected. And here, what is October? And now I got a new person to work with. So
is that something that the board needs to address with Castle Group also? Not that, I mean, I understand you're helping train another person, but maybe they need to be a little more attentive to our time frame. I mean, if you're working on the 2021 budget and you're just still trying to get July monthly financials, that's not acceptable.
We did have a meeting with a discussion with them last week, Sarah, was it, or the week? Yeah, it was last week, specifically on financials. And so they are working with us to assist us in that regard. And the new person is part of that process, because we've had nothing but trouble with getting things done in a timely manner. And I think they get the message now.
yeah, I think so.
But time will tell.
Yeah, I worked my way up the ladder, and I think they get the message that we're not accepting just sloppy work or late work. But if the new person I want you all to see in the package has promised me not only they would be more timely, of course, you can't, if a COVID comes along, that does put a dent in things to make it work, but promised to be more timely, to report into us more timely, to be available for questions regularly. So I just, it sounds more.
Can we, because I mean, this is just another suggestion, but we may need to add that as an addendum or something to their contract, that we are, it's a requirement that they submit things in a more timely manner moving forward.
Right.
Because COVID's only been in 2020, but
exactly. So
this has been their history.
Worse, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I have a meeting with the president this morning, so
great.
Good.
That will be a topic of conversation.
It just makes Sarah's job, I would think, more difficult when you don't have current numbers to work with and she's sitting there in limbo, not even being able to move forward on our budget. That's
it's
absolutely
not helping with the budgeting process. I agree. Yeah. And the other thing I need to bring up that we need to do with the change in our officers, we now need to sign new contracts, officers, with UBS. UBS is the company that handles our investment of the reserve money until we need it. So we make a little money on it while it's sitting there. And those contracts I have, and I've been reviewing, all but Joe, who doesn't have to sign. All the rest of you have various papers to sign. I'll have them at the office for you all later today for you to look at and sign. It's just because of the change in officers and who can authorize things, we need to just sign a new contract. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Jason, you want to talk about the chlorine tank at the by the waterfall?
Sure. Sent out a message on it yesterday just to kind of update where we were at, and I'll just kind of reiterate on that. The tank, it raises above that area a little by a couple feet. We've looked at, they're going to paint that tank tan, or not, I shouldn't say tan, because tan's not the right color. It's going to be a darker, something closer to what the stones are, so it looks more similar to the stones. And then we're getting a price from Jonathan Mosier with A&D to get some flagstones to stack up a little higher there that will look natural, like it was part of the original stonework to cover up. So as you're driving in, you won't see that. So basically that's the two things that they're looking at doing. He should have that price to me, and I just messaged him to see where it was at. He should have that price to me here in the next day or two. He said the stone price would be relatively similar to adding trees around it. But just looking at it from the street and the pictures that we sent, that he was going to do a little rendering on, the stones will look much better in a tree, and there's no maintenance cost in stone. So once they're on there, and it doesn't, there's no further maintenance cost to it. But he should have that to me shortly. He was already gathering those prices last week, so should have something here in the very near future for the board to look at.
Jason, can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
You say he, who is he?
Jonathan Mosier, he's with A&D. He's the area, he's in charge of this area for A&D.
Okay. And then in speaking with another resident, and you can clarify this, and maybe Bruce Lavoie may even be able to assist, since I know he's been involved in maintaining and cleaning up of that waterfall so often. But the way I understand it, the board, which I'm not sure, I still haven't received which board. We didn't, the current board hasn't been addressed with this. So I'm assuming it was the previous board. You said gave approval for them to place the tank there. However, it was at a courtesy to the pool company so that they would not have to continuously bring in the chlorine product by truck. And that they paid for the tank. Ron's shaking his head no, so maybe I've gotten incorrect information. But my point was, so if we were doing it as a courtesy and we didn't have to pay for the tank, why are we paying for the rocks that's going to go around it to now hide the appearance of the tank? Does that make sense?
I don't, to the best of my recollection, this did not come up to the board. At least not that we voted on. I don't know whether any of the other board members who were around at the time have any recollection of this, but I think this was done as part of their repair of the whole operating system, and
it's needed for the current operating system.
Yeah.
And I understand the need of it, and I think as long as it keeps it clean and less work for those who have put all those muscles and hours into cleaning that thing up, because I've seen them out there numerous times, you know, that's awesome. I just was wondering if even a smaller tank could be placed, or again, why are we paying for the cost to hide the tank?
Well, part of it is, and I think the term courtesy is not the right, I don't think that's the right way or wording. I think it's convenient. Convenience would be a better term because of how many issues we've had in the past. This was something we looked at so that we can maintain that pond. Part of the issue is the guys that come out and clean and take care of it, they don't drive a vehicle that they can bring that much chlorine to keep up on the ability. So they have a company that can come by and fill that tank. That's part of, if we were to leave it to where they were bringing it in every time, we would get nowhere near the service, and we would be back where we were with maintaining the waterfall to where it looks and that blue starts building up, and we're using a different chemical to treat it. I don't know, and the work they've done to get that waterfall looking good and keep maintaining it, and I believe it's in a much better position we're in. We're not burning up pumps like we did, and part of that process of doing it. Now we can say we can maintain a smaller chlorine tank, but then they're not going to have the volume of chlorine they need to do that to upkeep that waterfall. So hold on one second, please.
Is there anybody? Yeah.
Sorry.
Bruce, was Bruce involved in the?
Right, I was going to say, Corey, can you unmute Bruce, please?
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in it. In my opinion, if you ask my opinion, I think we're making so much out of this that's a non-issue. I mean, I see the tank just like everybody else when I ride in there. If that's what it takes, then the one thing, Tammy, that I don't, here's my opinion. I'm going to just give, not as a courtesy, or it's there because we need it so that the system works. If we as residents don't like the looks of that, it's not the pool company's fault that we don't like the looks of it. If we don't like the looks of it, I suggested painting it. And jokingly, I said raise the wall, but I don't think we could afford to do that. But if it's you know, that's on us. That you can't fault the pool company for trying to make it work right. And it's the first time since I've lived here, you know, and Tim Jackson, I see he's on here too, or Donna. We spent, I think, 4 summers cleaning that.
I know.
And I don't want to ever do it again. It's a killer. And you know, we're getting older. We're not getting any younger.
Exactly.
So
Speak for yourself.
yeah. Well, I am. Anyway,
Nor
if-
should you all have to. You've gone above and beyond your service on that waterfall without question. So.
and we didn't want to lose the falls, you know.
Right.
I think at one point when we had the other vendor that was taking care of it, who really wasn't doing, we were paying him, I think, for doing almost nothing.
Nothing.
And it was a comment that I made one time that, you know, if we don't do something, we're going to lose the falls, and we don't want to do that.
No, because
So,
it's a beautiful
you know,
entrance to our community. We just need to figure out how to hide this tank. But
Why don't, Tammy, I can appreciate that. But I do believe, and that process is underway. And I think, and I understand where people are concerned with it and how it looks today. But this was a process when we started, and it did take a while. And I will say materials, supplies, and everything due to COVID caused some issue, not completely. But you know, all these industries are struggling to get parts and materials in. So the board decision was approved for the repair. It wasn't a matter of this tank on this spot on this. Whenever that material came in, it was a matter of placing it where it would fit and was most logical. Unfortunately, the size of that tank to meet the needs and the amount of space we have, there's a block wall area there. So there's only so much space that they can access. That's the only place it would go, because there's other pumps in the other area.
Okay.
And then
If I may, we've consumed 30 minutes already of the allotted time for this meeting. I think we understand the problem, and I think there is a solution in progress. We should be able to move on to the next item.
I want to make one
I
more
think
comment
this
on
just-
that. When I went to look at it on Sunday, like the concrete blocks, Jason, that it's setting on, there's like 2 layers of that. Maybe we could just take it down to 1 layer. That would shorten the height of the tank.
I can ask, I will ask, I have no problem doing that. There may be a reason, and that's all. That's the only thing I'll say to that is there may be a reason. I'll find out.
That may be another option.
I think there's a lesson to be learned from all this, and that is that when we agree to have these repairs like this done, we need to make sure that we have some sort of a drawing or a plan or something that's going to show where these things are and what's going to be put in so that they don't become eyesores.
Exactly.
But let's move on. We know what we're doing. Let's get it painted first of all, and see, that might conceal it enough that we don't need to bother with the rest of it. But let's deal with it.
Thank you.
Jason, you going to talk about the violations?
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Violations. We've had a few that have gone out recently. As far as violations are concerned, the board has discussed some options, and my reasoning for discussing violations on this, because this is a workshop and not the situation where we talk about the individual violations, make decisions. That's up for the board to review, and at the board meeting, make those violations. On this topic, I will say that, Joe, you sent a response to an email yesterday, and I thought it was the perfect response to it. And I appreciate you sending that. And I think if you guys go down that path, as far as just giving a specific guideline to us as the management company to say, this is how we want it handled, then we will handle it that way 100% of the time and just work in that path. So I think if we look at each situation that the board is faced with as far as violations, ensure that the violations committees or the ARC committees and those committees, when they have an issue that requires a violation, the board, when I send out a violation, even though we're sending it out based on the guidelines in the association documents, the board, generally speaking, is the one who has a final stamp on that as to whether that violation goes any further than just a repair, like take care of the issue. So there's a few different areas of violations that we've talked about and need, and we just want to make sure that as the management company, we do exactly what the board feels and this current board feels is the way they want to handle things. So I don't want to go into detail of each individual violation because there is committees that are designed to have those conversations and present to the board their finding. I just, up until Joe, you sent that email the other day, I was hoping to get to the point of what your email was. And that, I guess that's why it was put on the agenda.
There's a point that I'd like to bring up here because there's an issue, and I'm not going to go into details right now, but there's an issue where we received a complaint from a resident about another resident with a barking dog.
Right.
And
yeah, I didn't.
The process that we have in place takes several weeks to go through its motions. And this particular case, the resident has sent to me a timeline of when the dog is barking. And it's clearly an unacceptable situation. And I think it's unfair to that resident to have to deal with that situation and wait for us to go through the motions for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long it takes. And I'm just wondering whether I don't know whether anybody else's thoughts are on this, but whether there's a way that we can speed up the process, particularly for incidences like this, where there is a time element involved. Comments?
Oh my, there's an echo.
That's because Carol's got hers on too, I think.
All right,
Carol may need to walk outside with hers. She can stay
Wait.
on, just walk outside.
Now we can't hear you.
You muted yourself.
Okay, now talk.
No, it's not good. Let me turn off the phone because I can hear Carol's. Okay,
Is Carol in the house with you, Joe?
yeah.
She has to walk outside with hers.
I'm going.
Sorry. Carl and I have ran into that numerous times. It's hard on the ears.
Yep.
Hey, Ron, there's one other I want to bring up whenever you guys finish talking about this. There's one that has nothing to do with the dog.
Okay.
Now Carol is on mute. Do you want to mute him, Corey?
Well, yeah. Anybody, any of the others, have you any comments to make on that particular issue?
That's the first time I hear about it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My viewpoint on the whole thing is, I agree that violations should be sent to those who are in fact violating rules. However, there can be exceptions to when violation letters are sent for the board's interpretation. I want the process followed. If we're going to send a violation letter, it is critical that the entire process be followed rather than only sending the violation letter and not following the process of fining and suspension.
Okay, but that doesn't answer my question is, how do we speed the process up if we need to?
Well, I think that's, we need to first understand why it's slow. I know all the committees would be most cooperative to speed the process up without exception. So I guess someone needs to explain to us why the process is slow.
Well, you send a letter, a warning letter out saying remedy or not. And I don't have one of the letters in front of me, but I assume the process gives the person 7 or 14 days or whatever it is to remediate. And if they don't, then they get another, they get a violation letter. Am I right, Jason?
Right, depending on if it's just a true violation, they receive a violation first and they get a date for the next hearing. Then if that hearing, right, the day before that hearing or within a couple days before that hearing, we go out and look, and if the violation still exists, we leave it on the agenda for the committee. If it's not taken care of, then it goes to the committee for review, and then they make a decision at that point as to whether we give them more time to repair, or if they're sent to finding and suspension for a recommendation of finding and suspension. What you're speaking of, Ron, in this case is, for instance, the neighbor in the backyard has a dog that barks. We receive that, we contact them with it, and we send them a warning notice or a violation that states that they're in violation of whatever paragraph, and that they need to remedy the situation, or they'll be recommended for finding and suspension. What you're asking, I believe, and when we've had conversations about this, is how do we stop the dog barking quicker? Instead of because if you send me a violation and I know I got 14 days, I'm going to go buy another dog. So it's not. It can be an issue that continues to grow, and we want to get to a solution, but at the same time being fair to the owners that are around it. So this typical system takes time due to the fact that I hate to say it this way, but people have rights as well. Generally speaking, the dog barking is not the situation. It's usually somebody has something in their yard they're not supposed to, or they're parking their car where they're not supposed to. Some communities tow vehicles for doing that. That's their remedy for a solution. Dog barking is a tough one because there are certain things that we can and can't do. We do in this particular case, we sent a violation, noticing them that they're the situation is and what paragraph they were in violation of. The next step is for it to go to the hearing. Generally speaking, we do not remove that from the hearing date because it's a violation that cannot be remedied by removing something from the yard. So we leave it for the committee to have that discussion and see if there's further action should be taken. If the people come in and make their case and say, oh, I was doing this, or I was out of town, that's my fault, sorry, we took care of it, the committee may say great. But on the other hand, if there's people show up from the other side and complain about it, there's sometimes it's recommended defining a suspension. So the process takes time. And in the meantime, most of the time, the dog's still barking.
Should we take into consideration that we, instead of allowing 14 days for them that to be addressed, cut it in half, maybe? I mean, in the instance where this is truly a annoyance, for the other neighbor.
Exactly. And now I will say, and for an option for the board, because this is a new age and new times, sometimes, and in this case, the end result of any violation and fine, technically by state statute, the board is approving that fine to be put into place. Regardless of if you have a committee that does it, it's always up to the board. The board is always approving that, whether they've given that authority to the organization or the committee to do it. It's still the board's purview to approve that violation. So one of the things that can be done in a situation where it's an annoyance of somebody's dog barking, we can send a violation and set up either a Zoom call or a direct meeting immediately for action to be taken, like an emergency board meeting to hear on that. Do you want to do that every time a dog barks? Depends on the situation and how severe. So you can put a process in place that where if it's a situation like that, the board can look at it and say, hey, we want to talk to this person right away and see if we can resolve this. Or you can give us, because our direction to them is going to be take care of the situation. The dog can't go out there. We're going to set a violation.
How often do you receive one for
probably it's probably a couple times a year, maybe 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's generally everything else in a violation is, like I said, it's somebody put a planter out they're not supposed to, somebody parks their car where they have a sign on the side of their car or something like that, to where it's easy to remedy and the actual violation doesn't cause damage to somebody else. A dog barking does cause damage to somebody else, keeps them awake at night. However, a sign on somebody's car, although annoying and against the rules, doesn't cause immediate damage to a resident who's trying to sleep or trying to conduct their normal life. But it is in violation and needs to be taken care of. Dog barking is different. Dogs or things of that nature, loud music, as far as turn their radio up too loud and leave the door, those sort of things have to be remedied quicker. But the process of the state statutes takes longer than you getting to bed that night. It takes longer than resolving that. So that's kind of the situation we're talking about. If we want a faster process, our process as association management as a whole, the process to resolve the issue and stay within state guidelines so that you can follow and do the fining takes time, because people have to have the ability to fix the problem. You have to give them that.
Diane, did I understand you correctly that the board has a right, even though the state says one thing, the board for the association can maybe revise those guidelines?
You can, you can do, as the board, you can call an emergency meeting and discuss an issue and make a ruling on it. It has to be duly noticed.
Well, I was trying to not call it an emergency meeting, but.
Well, and anything that's not a normal scheduled board meeting is an emergency meeting. It has to be duly noticed, but it's considered an emergency meeting. You can do it under the emergency meeting guidelines. It's something that is involving a resident that it needs immediate action. A hurricane comes through and you need to meet that day to figure out what you're going to do. You can call an emergency meeting that day. It falls under the emergency meeting guidelines. If a dog is barking and keeping 16 hours up and you need to take action on it and find a solution, you can call an emergency meeting on that. It still needs to be duly noticed, and people
Might
need.
be the best way to handle those. Then Ron could voice his opinion, or the other board members. What do you think?
I think if it's appropriate, then we should do just that and call an emergency meeting of the fining and suspension committee or whatever, or the board themselves can do that.
You supersede them on that case.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question, and I have a proposal. First of all, if you look at our governing documents, specifically the covenants, the fining procedure and all of that is very clearly spelled out. There are some specifics that we are talking about that are not mentioned. But here's my proposal. In the case of this dog barking, can we not send a letter out stating that we have an issue or whatever? I mean, does everything have to be a violation letter, then a courtesy letter? Because that will speed up the process if we simply send a courtesy letter first rather than a violation letter.
So we call that, and yes, we do refer to it as a warning letter because it has no action. The only action is to please resolve or understand that you may be in violation. It says it in nicer terms. It says, you may not be aware, but there is a rule that covers this. Please make sure that you're within, the guidelines. It's a nicer way of saying, if you don't fix this, we're going to send you a violation. But we call it a warning letter. We can change that warning to notice, or we can change the naming on it. That's something we can do, because that letter can be sent out. And if the board feels they would want that to be the first step, we do that in many cases. If somebody has something that it's just a normal, hey, you let your screen fell out of your window and it's laying in the yard. I mean, not that that's a violation. I'm saying if that were the case, we're going to send you a warning notice, not a violation. You don't need to go to the meeting. Just please fix the problem. It's not a major issue, but if you don't repair it, then we have to go follow further steps. Now, in a case where somebody's doing something, it's blatant, or it's immediately against the rules and it has no vagueness to it or gray area, we send a violation, because even in that violation, it gives them an amount of time to repair to take care of it before they have to go to the committee. But we do use the warning notice, and we can change the name of that as well.
Well, that's good. I would prefer to use the warning letter. And then we can track exactly what percentage of people correct the problem. But to Ron's point, how do we speed up the process And this would be a quicker solution.
I think that's something you guys should maybe beat around a little and see. And also as a situation arises, we can immediately send it to the board and say, and kind of talk about the situation real quick and see if it's an instance where you want to call an emergency meeting. We get a call regarding a dog barking. We can put it out and we can look at each situation individually. If you feel it's something that requires immediate attention, or if we notice it as a situation that requires immediate attention, we can call an emergency meeting. Otherwise, we can just, if you don't feel it is, we can send out the warning notice. And if we feel it's bigger than that, we can send out the violation. But you guys can decide right then what level you want to start at, or if you want to hold an emergency meeting. We have our process. We look at every situation. Usually I reach out and say, hey, this is a violation, or this might be a violation. We want to get this straightened out. We send out a warning. Hey, we know this is a violation, or we get a violation from one of the committees saying, hey, please send this out for us. We send a violation. The process from then begins. But I think if we want to look at individual situations where it is an annoyance, and let's call annoyance situations, we can look at each of those individually, and I can just send a message to the board and say, hey, do you want us to just send them the warning, the violation, or do you want to have an emergency meeting and discuss a possible resolution that'll be quicker? We can start with that and see where it goes if you'd like.
I like it.
I like that too.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, in this particular situation that we've got going right now, let's get something out to the homeowner, which we've already done. And if we don't get any response within a day or two, if you follow it up with a phone call, and then from there, if necessary, we'll have to call an emergency meeting.
Sounds good to me.
I have one more question while you're on the issue of violations. And this isn't like the emergency meeting. So a violation's been sent, the resident has complied, and then shortly after the same violation is in place again. What's the direction of our guidelines that's supposed to be taken at that time?
So that's part of this issue is generally speaking, here's the way we handle it. If I send out a violation to you,
yep,
you fix the problem, we all go about our business. I take you off the list for the next meeting for the violations committee.
okay.
I go for my next drive around. There you are again. You've put that silly horse racing sign back out in your front yard.
Hey,
I'm going to send you another violation, but this time, regardless of whether you fix it or not, I'm sending it to the committee and it's staying on the agenda, but I'm attaching both violations.
which committee?
So this is finding and suspension. If it depends on what the violation is. If it's architectural and they need to, see the problem, and then it would go to, so they can review and go to finance suspension. Whoever is the governing authority on the issue, generally speaking, but it's something like that, it's finding and suspension of the violations committee. They're going to look at it, but we're going to now send both violations, the date that we sent both, the fact that you repair, they're going to see the fact that you fixed it. And then we had to send it again because you went back out and did it again. So then they can see the whole picture of the process. So they can say, we want this sent to we want this sent to the board to approve a fine, or we want, that way they know this isn't the first instance, this isn't the first time.
I believe our bylaws state that if it happens twice within 12 months, right?
Right.
That a fine is suggested, but you're saying it's still left up to finding and suspension as to whether or not the fine actually.
Right. Always. I, as the association manager, cannot impose a fine.
Gotcha.
The board, in the end, it's the board who decides to impose the fine. I recommend, we actually in South Shore Falls, luckily, have a findings and suspensions committee. They actually recommend to you, the board. You give them the authority for making their recommendations or recommending those fines, but each fine that is submitted comes to the board for a board meeting, and then they're just approved. They look at them and go, okay, we approve that fine, we approve that fine. The board in the end always approves the fine. It's just how the recommendation comes to you. Sometimes it comes from the management company. Sometimes it comes from finding and suspension. In the case of South Shore Falls, 99.9% of them come from finding and suspension to the board for approval. No matter where the initial violation was created at, it goes through that process. So when the board receives it, they approve the fine, then we take that back and we put it into GenArc so that there is a notice that the fine is in there and it's part of their documentation. If they don't pay it, they show it as a late fee, and then eventually, that's how it's recovered. So the process is in there, but anytime there is a fine imposed, the board must put the final stamp on it. Everybody else can do their work, but in the end, and it's a simple process, but in the end, the board needs to look at it. And generally speaking, you take the finding and suspensions recommendation, that person may show up to the board meeting and say, wait, board, please listen.
Watching the video. That's okay. I can
That's
talk.
how the process goes.
We need to mute KK.
I don't see her.
There she went. Okay, thanks for the explanation. I understand.
All right, the time is running on and I have another meeting. So Corey, did you get my message?
I did. It's sorted out.
Okay, thank you. All right, ARC application.
I'll try to be as quick as I can. In your packet board that you received from Brooke, there was an ARC application that was put in there. I believe that the architectural committee feels that architectural approval was never actually granted. If you take a look at it, there was a signature on the bottom of it. The person who signed it was not part of the architectural committee at that time, according to our research. The architectural committee feels that this should be passed on to the board or the finding and suspension committee. The recommendation was also that they need to repaint their house. I believe this should be looked at and discussed a little more by you guys because it is a pretty hefty, I'm going to call it an accusation because we don't have, I don't want to accuse anybody at this point because we're still looking into it. But I can tell you that from our investigation, the signature on the bottom for the approval of the architectural committee was not part of the architectural committee at that time. And I think Joe Leahy would be one to be able to review that and confirm that as well.
I did speak to the party who supposedly signed it. He left the committee in 2017. And to your point, Jason, he states he did not sign any such document.
Okay.
How did this come about, Jason? Did somebody bring it to you or?
We sent a violation for the fact that the color of the home is not in guidelines with the rest of the community and what the approved color schemes were. The owner brought in this approval stating that they had been previously approved to paint it this color.
Do we know who those other signatures are there to the right of the person we've just been talking about?
That I can't tell you. Obviously we can only see the one. I mean, it's, I'm not saying obviously, but it's.
Al's.
Is it?
Al's maybe, but I can't make out the middle one.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't attest to anybody else's signature, but the one is obvious.
Yeah. And that one was not on that
He
committee.
was not on, right, he was not on the committee at that time.
Got it.
And he says he didn't sign it.
All right, so I mean, this is, I guess, Tammy, you're suggesting this is AJ on the right-hand one?
Al, yes, AJ.
Okay, so
Reach out to
somebody
him.
should, can you call him? I don't know, Joe, since you know this stuff better than anybody else. Can you talk to him?
Al?
Yeah,
Sure, be glad to.
all right, and see whether he knows anything, and then based on what he comes back with, then we'll obviously have to make some call. I mean, as you rightly said, Jason, this is a pretty serious accusation.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Doug, the chairman of ARC, is on, and I think he will be able to confirm that Al knows about it and is in agreement. If we could unmute Doug for his explanation, it may save us time.
Doug may also know that other signature possibly. Well, he just got on, so he may not.
Can you find him, Corey?
Yeah, Douglas.
Yeah.
I'm asking him to unmute.
Okay,
Unmute, Doug.
Don't rush because we're running a bit over, so I'll get to the clubhouse as soon as I
You
can.
gotta come, Douglas, you gotta go in the bottom left corner of the window and hit the mute button to turn yourself on, please.
If you send him a message, if you click the little blue button,
doing
Corey,
That's what I'm doing now.
Doug, you need to unmute yourself if you want to talk.
Just click on the microphone that
Yeah.
you can see by your picture.
So I have to laugh. There is someone as inept on Zoom as me.
We'll
All
have it
right.
down by the time COVID's over with and we
Right,
won't.
we'll come back to it in a little while. Let's move on to the next one. Obviously, we need to stay on top of this and follow it through. Social activities update. Very quickly. Do you want to? Okay, Doug's.
That's a different, Douglas. There's two different
Hello?
microphones.
Hello?
Yeah, you're talking on two different machines, so it's a tremendous echo.
If he mutes the computer, he should be okay. Turn the computer all the way down.
That's okay. For the sake of time, we may want to move on and I will call Al.
Joe, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, but there's a tremendous echo.
I understand that, but let me,
I think he has two devices on.
If you turn the computer all the way down, it should be okay.
is that better?
A little bit, but just say what you want to say quickly, Doug, and then we'll move on.
Okay, I'll speak quickly. To Joe's point, thank you for allowing me to participate. I'm very much involved in this violation. It came to our attention back in June when another resident submitted an application to paint their house the same color. We told that resident that we would not allow that. It was a violation of the approved palettes. The resident during the meeting then referred to this specific address and told us, well, there's already a house with this color. I and two other committee members visited that home, and that's how it came to our attention. So all the committee members are well aware of it. Specifically, Al says that he did not or does not recall ever signing that document. As a matter of record, the date of that document was a date that I was also on the committee, as well as Joe Lee, who were both active members of that committee. So I don't know how much more I can tell you without going into specifics, which I do not want to do during this call.
Okay, thank you. All right, we obviously will have to take this further, but we'll do that in a different environment. Corey, do you want to move on to social activities, please?
Sure. We've
Make it as brief as you can, please.
Yeah, very quickly. We've had multiple conversations with the board and in general about reaching a consensus for numbers. There are some groups that have asked for access to the access to the ballroom for activities and groups. We've sent out, I sent out today a follow-up to the groups. Basically, I'm looking for feedback for the groups that want to meet or use the ballroom to give some feedback so we can establish the final numbers of what would take place in the ballroom. My understanding, unless it's changed, is that any other events would be, which we're working on, would be outdoor events. Booked a comedian for November and have some other events to discuss with the lifestyle committee tomorrow that I've worked through with other castle properties. So that's where we are.
Okay. I think we need to wait until we get responses from the leaders of the groups who have interest in doing things so that we can really gauge what this interest is. And, you know, we've heard interest from various people, but we don't really know what the numbers are. And to go through all these exercises and buy equipment and whatever to satisfy half a dozen people is not a wise thing to do. So I think we just need to wait and see what sort of response we get, and then and have some more conversations to make sure things are realistic. I mean, we got an email yesterday from somebody who wants us to buy an outdoor table tennis table. A very reasonable request, but the maximum number of people who play table tennis is 8, and 4 of those are snowbirds. So in the winter months it's 4, and in the summer it's 8. I can't see the justification in buying an outdoor ping pong table for the use of 8 people. At this point in time anyway, we just don't have that sort of money around that we can do things like that. At least that's my opinion. I don't know what the others think.
I would like to suggest that as soon as Corey, like give up maybe, I don't know, till the first of the week or something for these leaders of our chairs of these activities to respond to Corey, but let's not hold the community off or our decision off for another even 2 weeks or a month in making a decision as to whether or not what and where things are going to be.
I agree, Tammy. You know, we don't want to drag this out too long.
Exactly.
Let's just see what sort of response we get over the next, you know, during the course of this week, and then we can talk about it again next week.
What's the actual clarification, or do we have one on the number of guests that we may allow in the ballroom at a time? I've been over there this past week and there were like several different tables, one in each corner, maybe 4 people at a table. That added up to like 12 people at a time. I think, is it Sammy's allowed 16 in there for what they play? But did we ever decide that like bingo could be, and I may be confused, but I thought at one time we were talking about allowing 40 people, 4 at a table, social distancing, to be in that ballroom. Is that still an option for all of us?
Yeah, I mean, that was what I understood as with the agreement that we made about bingo. If bingo is going to be a practicality for us at this point in time, it doesn't seem to be. But beyond that, I think we said, you know, we only want 1 group in there at a time. And if, you know, if it's poker and they've got 4 tables with 4 people or 6 people at double tables, you know, 16 people as a max with any one group. I mean, that's what I understood we agreed to.
Okay, I understood differently, so thanks for clearing that up.
But, you know, a lot's going to depend on what sort of response we get. And I have a suspicion that we're not going to get much in the way of response at all, but I may be completely wrong.
Okay.
All right. Jason, you know, Tammy, you put an item on the agenda about the backup server. There have been quite a number of conversations about this in the last week or so. Jason, do you want to just give a summary of how all our stuff is backed up and protected so that we don't have an issue should there be a catastrophic event of any sort?
Sure. So everything that is considered a governing document, association document, anything that is to do with state statutes for maintaining documents, and also, you know, most of the other items we use for day-to-day operations are maintained on the server, which is backed up down in Miami and in a protected server down there, which is also backed up. Anything that, like, if any of our documents that are used by the association, such as like if Judy produces a document sent out to a resident, it goes into GenArc into their file. All those are backed up. It's part of the service whenever you hire Castle for documentation backup, what they do. Anytime that information is needed, it's, you know, we go into the server, we can pull it up. We do on our desktops locally, what we keep there is anything that is maybe a template that will produce a final document, or a project that's in work. generally what happens if we have a spreadsheet that is used, and I'll use, for example, and is the contract renewal spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet we use that sends a message to us whenever there's a contract renewal coming up. We update that. That stays on the server. We also, while we're working on it or updating it, we keep a working copy on the server. Once that's updated, then it gets put onto the server and the old one is removed or put into archives so that it doesn't, so that it's the proper one is in the file for it. So everything we use in the association, anything that is considered an association official document, anything that needs to be stored, and to include emails, all of those things are stored in this on the server. Castle has a large server and storage space down in Miami Gardens area, Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, that they maintain all of that. In the instance that those documents were needed or needed to be transferred somewhere else, it's a simple process as far as transferring those. It would just need to know what form of transfer it would need to be. And then we have a transfer team that transfers that documentation to whoever it needs to be transferred to. So everything is backed up, and that's part of what part of the service from Castle is, to maintain any documents that need to be stored. It goes in, like I said, it goes into the server down there, and it's maintained in perpetuity. So it's not something that is going to go away. The new state laws require that most every document are kept for the rest of time, for the rest of the organization, in fact. But it's because there used to be time limits. There used to be like 5 years for certain documents, 7 years for other documents. Now it's just keep everything. Since the digital age and everything's kept on servers anyway, they said, why do we need to delete anything? Just keep it all and don't get rid of it. So from here on out, any documents that are saved for, forever. I hate saying forever because it's not really forever. It's until if you disband as an association, we're going to delete, we're going to hand you your files and delete them from ours.
Jason, my question was more specific to South Shore Falls having their own personal server that everything is backed up on. And I'm reminded of this only because when Access left and you all came aboard, we as South Shore Falls were missing so many legal documents, financial stuff, all of that. And they took it. Ron's shaking his head no. Okay.
There's a lot of that stuff.
That's what I was told by Wayne Bernard. So that's where I'm getting that.
All right, we can, rather than dive into that, I'll just tell you this. What we store for you is your property. If, like what happened with Access, let's just use that as an example. It's, it is what it is. If there were to come a time when Castle and South Shore Falls were to not be at good terms anymore and you wanted to move on, we don't own those documents. You own them. We store them for you, and you basically pay us to store them for you. They would be turned over as your document because they are your property. By the state of Florida, we would not be able to keep those from you. We are required, and we could be found liable if we got rid of them from you, like if we didn't give them to you. This is not, if Castle or any management company, let's say, were to do that, they're in breach of contract, and are also by state guidelines, they're in violation. If we have we store documents for you, this is a service. This is not a situation where these are our documents and if you want them, you got to buy them. No, you're paying us to store these documents for you. So they are safe in case if a flood came through here and we had everything in paperwork, that paperwork would be gone and you would lose it. So we store it in a server, and it's in a backed. We provide that service to you. They are not our documents as far as Castle. They are our documents as South Shore Falls. We store them for you. If it came a situation and you needed them from us, it's our responsibility to provide them to you.
Got it.
Obviously, I wasn't present when you had your conversation with Wayne, but I was intimately involved in this when the changeover took place. And what I believe that he was referring to is the fact that there were many documents and plans and plats and whatever that Pulte was supposed to provide us with when transition took place, which they never did, and that's what we're missing. It's not anything that we were missing that Castle did, that Access did not hand over to us.
He specifically referenced Access, but as long as we're good and we're safe and we know we have, you know, everything covered. Joe, does that answer? Because this came up with
Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak with Ron, and I am very comfortable the fact that all of our documents are backed up, and Jason has just confirmed that they are our property. So I'm good.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Do you want to talk quickly about this Halo LED system?
Yes, please. I think that goes back to trying to open up events in the building, and it also it's a purification process for the clubhouse, even the guests, the staff that are in there at this time longer than even the residents are. And so I generated and shared that spreadsheet with everyone for the vendors that I've contacted, the cost that would be needed to cover that. You notice the Crone West, that's our current HVAC contractor that John speaks highly of and kind of wishes to use them as the vendor should we move forward with this. But if you order more than 5, his price kind of goes down. Two of the contractors out of the 5 I contacted, I thought were extremely high. They probably aren't even in consideration. The Heaven's Breeze, they're close. But I don't know if it would be worth enough to pay the difference. I mean, I think it would be worth enough to pay the difference to stick with Crone West, who is already currently on site. Should we decide that this is something, you know, that we may want to look into for the sanitizing and purification of the air in the building over there.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but do I understand it correctly that this is something that goes into the ducting and is not part of the AC unit, so that if the AC unit breaks down, and we've had those break down on a number of occasions and we have to replace them, that we do not have to replace this?
No, this goes above your air handler unit for each unit. Does not get attached to. It's like an LED light installed over top. Dan, could we unmute Dan, because he just had one installed in his home and he could possibly explain better the installation and the process, as well as his son-in-law is an HVAC tech or owner of a company. Dan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's not part of the air conditioning unit. Like Tammy said, it actually goes in the duct work above, like the A coil that, you know, sits above the air conditioning unit and treats the air coming out of the unit. I mean, you could actually run it with just the blower running and treat the air in the room.
But it does state, and I sent attachment, a brochure, and then another link that Crone West had provided, and it treats up to or kills 99.9% of viruses that come through. And I'm just thinking, you know, we're looking at buying a TV and a cart and a tent and on for outside events. We may want to consider this option and maybe not be out the expense of the other equipment that may be just for temporary use, where this would be a permanent solution, even moving forward down the line. And I don't know if you noticed, but I noted on there, and in speaking to the vendors, these are probably on order if we decided to do it. You know, it could take 8 to 10 weeks to even get them in. So I was just putting this out there, not necessarily that we could include it in 2020, but maybe something that could be included for 2021, and we could include in the budget at that time. And certainly, as I stated also, we would bring an HVAC company and tech in to do a presentation so we could all be familiar with this before making a final decision moving forward. So just some food for thought right now as
I
we
mean,
move
look,
forward.
I think it does bear some attention. Let's see what responses we get. Sarah, let's look at this in terms of budget for 2021. You know, we're talking probably 15,000 or something. We're going to have to.
So it was 11,500, I believe.
Yeah, but you know, that I don't know. There may be. Let's round it up to 15,000 just so we're covered.
Well, I'm just going by what he quoted per
Yeah,
unit.
no, I understand that. I'm just saying, let's round it up in case there's some hidden things that we don't know about, so that we don't get caught.
And then take into consideration the replacement bulbs, which he's saying could be every 4 years.
Right.
So every 4 years, we may be at the cost of $4,200.
Right. So that, yeah, I mean, you can put that in the reserve so that we don't have to
Yes,
be concerned about it.
exactly.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think, you know, I appreciate what you did there, Tammy, and it's certainly useful to have. And, you know, given what we know now and what I suspect we're going to know in a while, that I think this virus is going to be around for a very long time. Whether or not the vaccines are, you know, foolproof or not, we don't know. But, you know, if we can do something to keep the air cleaner and safer for everybody, then that's probably something that we should think about. So let's look at it as we go forward and keep it on the back burner so that we don't forget about it.
Can we try to review that before maybe the next board meeting? And I'm just saying that so that we can maybe, if we're considering it, Sarah can include it in the 2021 budget.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we can put it into the budget anyway, but you know, that doesn't mean to say we have to spend it if we decide we don't think it's necessary.
Okay, just so we have it in consideration.
Right.
It would be November, not this board meeting in October. We're not anywhere close enough to guess how much money we're going to need in the budget. So we start adding for sod and various other things in this new system. We may have to say, hold on a minute.
Yep.
So we're just not there yet.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If there are questions, I'm going to leave. But if anybody wants to ask questions, as you put your hands up through the participants button on your screen, and the rest of you can deal with the questions. And if anything comes up that you need me for, you know how to get hold of me.
Ron, can anyone address the pond status that was
Oh,
requested?
all right. Very quickly. I mean, right now, I'm sorry, I did write it down here and I forgot in my hurry to get out. We met this week with a botanist who spends all his time working on ponds, and he made a number of recommendations to us which made a lot of sense. He's going to put us in touch with an engineer at Swiftmud, who he says is very friendly and would be happy to come out and talk to us. We can't do anything water-wise without Swiftmud's approval, so that's one step in the right direction. And he's also recommending to us an engineer that he knows that he's done work with, who can come in and talk to us. Bottom line is, from everything I've heard and seen, that we have to think very seriously in terms of what monies we need to put away into our budget, into our reserves for ponds moving forward. The problem that we see now on pond 7 and pond 8, and to a degree on pond 9, these are things that are going to continue to get worse and will occur on the other ponds as well, simply because these ponds were all designed as retention ponds. And essentially what that means is that it retains water and it takes in the flow that comes in off the streets and our backyards and everywhere else. And the result of that is you get a mass of nutrients and a mass of silt going into the ponds. And so the ponds are all silting up slowly but surely. And that's what's happened with 7, where we will have almost no depth at all right now. And pond 8, which silted up at where the cattails used to be. And these are situations which, we might spend $200,000 now to fix them. And in 15 years, we're going to have to spend the same sort of money again, because this is a repetitive situation. But one of the ways that you can help to mitigate that is by planting plants in the ponds, which effectively eat up the nutrients and help to stop erosion. But you're never going to stop the silting, because that's just hard stuff that comes in off the roadways. There are ways that you can ease it a little bit by putting in bubblers and things of that nature, which we've done to a certain degree. But we are facing, and for most of us who are sitting around watching this, and the current residents who live here are probably not going to be involved in the next round of expense that comes up. But that doesn't mean to say we don't have to be aware of it right now. We do, and it's our duty as a board. Our first responsibility as a board is fiduciary. It is our duty to make sure that we plan for the future, and that's the direction that we're going to have to go in. To give you any more specifics, there isn't anything more specific. Jason, add anything if you want to, but that in a nutshell is where we stand. And hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so, we'll get hold of these engineers and get them in here and be able to talk to them, and then we'll be able to sit down and try to figure out what is the right thing to do in our current situation, and then the right thing to do to plan for the future. All right. Okay. Everybody seems to be muted. I didn't hear Tammy there at all. Oh, okay. Tammy, speak.
No, I just said thank you for sharing that information.
All right. So I'm going to leave. If you want, if anybody has questions, are there any hands up? If anybody wants to put their hand up, please do so. And then
Bruce had a question.
Yeah.
Go on, Bruce.
I didn't know if I was still muted or not.
Oh, we can hear you.
You're
Okay.
good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the question was to Jason, I guess, with waste management and the remediation process, it looks like to me up along the back of Cedar Falls, it looked like they put down a substance similar to white latex paint, where that's in globs where they put over top of each oil spill. And then of course that got driven over, and now you got tire tracks, and it looks like somebody spilled paint. The first time they started doing remediation, they were putting down some gray substance, which I heard was a paint. At least it matched the macadam a little better, but I didn't know if you were aware of that.
No, I'm gonna take a look.
I think the paint is a completely irrelevant part of this whole process. The paint's been there for 3 or 4 weeks. Somebody spilled paint. I think someone must have had a job on Laurel, and when they left, they drip paint all the way up Laurel and then down Cedar until it stopped.
I don't think I agree with that, because if you look, there's big blotches at every driveway where, if what you're saying, it would have dripped all the way up, but this has big blotches.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay.
I've seen it, but I don't think they were related, because I ride my bike around several times a week, and the paint's been there for quite a while.
Okay.
Anyway, I've got to run. So thanks everybody for attending. You continue as long as you need to with questions. And
Bruce, can I
Yes.
share with you? I drove through the community on Monday as well, just because Brandon had told me they would be in here to clean the roads.
Right.
And so I saw what you were talking about. And at first I thought it was the same thing too. It was them. But when I went back to Shell, where they were just starting, he had just started on Shell, the cleanup company had. So he hadn't even gone back to those streets. So I think Ron is correct that that's probably 2 different incidences. I don't think it had to do with the waste connection cleanup.
All right. It definitely needs to be, if possible, pressure washed off, because it's a mess.
Well, see, that would be going back to whoever. That wouldn't be waste connection though. We would have to get maybe John. I mean, how are we going to know which company spilled?
Right, no, I agree. If it isn't Waste Connections, then I have no idea who it would have been.
Yeah,
It's just an unsightly mess, and
I
don't think
agree.
it's going to wear off anytime soon, just from, rain or traffic.
I don't know if that's something John could go back there and pressure wash, but how would he get water?
No, that's the problem. You'd have to have somebody that has a large tank, on a trailer that comes in. And to be honest with you, I've tried pressure washing the street in front of my house, that there was paint, there was green paint from one of the houses that were built.
Uh-huh.
And it's quite a process. I have a turbo nozzle on mine, and it's difficult. So I was hoping that that was something that eventually would wear off, but if it's paint,
Oh, is there a chemical, Jason, would you all know, is there a chemical that eats paint up that could just be,
On the asphalt,
yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't use a chemical on the asphalt with the paint. A regular pressure washer should take the majority of it up. The rest of it will be gone within a couple weeks of driving over it. But shoot me a text with that address and I'll go look at it. I can get our guy to go over there and clean it up. I'll go take a look at it this right now, as soon as we get off here.
just drive up to the end of Laurel and make a right, make a left, and you'll see it all down the street.
Okay, I'll be over there in a few minutes, then I'll go take a look at it and see if I missed it, but I can get our guy over there to take care of that. I wouldn't put any chemicals down, because any chemicals you put remove a lot of the oils from the asphalt, which causes them to break down. So I'd rather just stick with regular pressure washer. And honestly, I'm not saying this to be mean, but deal with a little bit of pain over losing asphalt starting to break up, and the tires alone over time will wear off the rest of the paint. But a quick pressure washing, and then hopefully that'll take most of it up. Now, if it's something worse than regular paint, then we'll have to look at it. But if it's just some acrylic paint that got on there and it's in an area where it's going to be fairly decent traffic, we can do a quick pressure washer and remove it. I just hate using any type of chemical on asphalt. The stuff that the garbage company uses is designed for the asphalt and to not remove the oils from within the asphalt. I mean, it's still going to do it a little bit. You don't want to do it a million times, but it helps. But I would, I just using any type of paint thinner or anything like that to take it up can cause the asphalt to dry up and become brittle. So, but I'll look at it, and if it's something we can get taken care of real quick, I'll have our guy come do it.
thank you.
Right.
Rich has his hand up, it looks like.
Right.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Here,
Very quick on the dog issue. I did some research on this. And I just wanted to point out that Hillsborough County does have a dog nuisance ordinance. And I'm going to forward the application to the community via our website. If I have a problem with that, I'll drop it off. But this may be a way to speed up the process, is what people are looking for, because it'll be turned over if the person who's affected by this wants to follow through with a complaint. It will be done by the sheriff's department, as well as what we can do internally in the community. And it does provide for, it's a misdemeanor offense, and the person who is guilty of this nuisance can be fined up to $500 and imprisoned up to 60 days. So I think we could send out a strong message to people. If you have animals, you need to control them. Thank you.
One last thing I wanted to point out with the holiday season, Halloween, Christmas, we probably need an e-blast or something to remind people how many decorations you can have all over your yard, what the time frame is. Like, it's a little early for Halloween to have a whole bunch of stuff in your yard, and more than you need. Something just to remind people when the take up, the take down, how much, so we don't have to start with a whole bunch of violations pretty soon.
I don't think we have anything specifically addressing like fall stuff. I think it all starts around mid-November for just the Christmas holiday season through January the 6th, I think it is.
Yeah, I thought we had something about how soon you could put up decorations and how soon you needed to take them down. Christmas was an exception.
Yes.
But, I noticed a whole bunch of Halloween decorations, which are fine, but some have really gone overboard, way more than's allowed. So I just think a reminder, so we don't have to start with warning letters or anything else. Just tell people this is what you can do. And just a reminder.
the ARC guidelines are very clear on this. With the exception of Christmas, 7 days prior to any national holiday is appropriate for put up, and a few days after the holiday, they have to be down.
Well, you've driven around though. Have you seen some of the Halloween decorations out already? They're crazy.
I just blessed myself, Sarah.
I'm one who likes to decorate, so I have a few things out. I'll be the first to say, and I've gotten so many compliments on how well everything looks. I think it adds a little nice, different look to the residents' properties, but that's just my opinion. I may even request that maybe some of that we look into that, or the art looks into some revision for fall decorating, because I know several residents.
Well, some is really nice, a wreath or whatever, but I'm talking about major things in the yard that are definitely Halloween, and it's just way overdone in my opinion, when we don't even have kids. Come on, why would we decorate like crazy? It's against the rules, and I would like it to be blasted out so we don't have to deal with it. Remind people what the rules are.
It creates an
that's a good idea.
inconvenience, if I may. It creates an inconvenience for the landscape people, or a risk of damaging some of the items they put out, and then they expect it to be replaced. So that's another problem.
Got a question from Renati. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Renata.
Renata.
Okay, getting back to the dog issue, we had a problem about a year or a year and a half ago with a dog in back of our neighborhood. And the county actually made it very difficult for us because we had to go around and have everybody's signature notarized in order to get anything done. And still, after all of that and submitting all of that, nothing got done. So I think it needs to be done within our neighborhood. Now, I don't know whether Rich was referring to the dog next door to us, because Rich and I are in the same building. We have a dog here that barks nonstop. But I really feel like this should be a local issue that we could take care of, because the county makes it very, very difficult for them to handle. We had at the time 12 signatures, and we had to get each one of those signatures notarized, and then nothing was done.
Are you talking about the noise ordinance for
dogs specifically?
Yeah, very difficult. In my house, I have a neighbor across the pond. It has to be a certain extent of time of constant activity too, that you have to show proof of. You have to have, like, it's very difficult. And also right now, due to the current climate between COVID and everything, the sheriff's office as well, it's very difficult to get on calls like that. So hopefully we can resolve the issue within the community and not have to go there. I mean, obviously, if it continues on, then it's something that can be addressed that way as well. It's you're correct. It's very difficult with the county to get the county to respond to it because of the rights of individuals and how much proof you have to provide. And the time period that the dog has to bark consistently is actually quite a bit. If you're dealing with it that long, you're more likely to throw the dog in the pond than actually call the county. It's like a long period of time. You're like, it has to be like 20 something minutes long of constant barking before the county will even consider it a nuisance. It's like, it's a weird number, but yeah, I think if we can hopefully resolve it, and that is obviously an opportunity if somebody has a problem like that, that you can go through that process with the county. But hopefully people in the community are pretty, respectful to each other. And if, a warning will resolve the issue, or at least, reaching out to them will at least.
Just one more quick comment about the Halloween decorations. I never put anything like that up, but right now with the pandemic and people getting stuck in their homes and life is kind of depressing, and I'm sure other people feel the same way, a little brightness in our neighborhood might be the thing to perk people up as they're driving in and out of the neighborhood. Just for these particular times, I think we need to have some joy in our lives. Just a comment. You can unmute me now.
Other questions?
Just in response to Renata, I think a little's good, pumpkin and some people, Tammy especially, tend to get carried away because she loves to decorate. And I just think a little Heads up would be nice.
Didn't decorate the mailbox though.
No decorating on the mailbox.
No
Not your
decorating on.
You have to set
somebody-
up, you have to be a good example also for the community. If we have rules that we have to observe, us as board members should be the first ones to observe those rules.
Exactly. We have somebody's hand up, but I don't know who it is.
Okay.
No, it's me.
Elizabeth. Okay.
Oh, looks like KK.
It's Beth.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Just saying that I think, like Renata, it's nice to see that people is decorating, it's motivating to do something, to make the community happier. And I think it's a good idea. Just incentivates people do something different. It's nice. It's fun. We need some fun in our life right now.
That's true.
And
KK.
KK.
We have to-
Unlock
we have to
KK.
Unmute KK.
Sorry.
I'm looking.
She still isn't.
Where? Okay.
AK, the two letters K, K.
Okay, I got it.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. I'm agreeing with Tammy on this. There's so many bad things in this world right now. We need some enjoyment and some fun. And yes, I've decorated, not as much as I'm going to, but I have a few things out already. And I understand the rules and regulations, and I agree with most of them. But decorating a little bit over the top at this time, I think it's a wonderful idea. Thank you very much.
There's some, Corey, there's still somebody's hand up down here, but, or maybe it's not, I don't know. It's not on a name.
I don't see anybody on the 22 that are left. There's no hands up.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Any other questions? Counting down. Thank you, Corey. You can close us out.
Call it quits.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
good day, everyone.
Hang on. If I may, I really want to send a compliment to the community in general. They have really stepped up to the plate in volunteering for the CCOC committee. We currently have 9 residents who have volunteered to be interviewed for this committee. And I think very, very strongly that this is probably the best and most interested turnout we've ever had. So thanks to the community. The second thing is, I want to say thank you to Dan for getting our website up and ready. It is now completely finished. We will continue to take suggestions. The other good news is we finally have all the committee charters posted except for 2. We're missing the Finance Committee charter, which Sarah is working on, and the CCOC charter is complete. I will email both the Finance Charter and the CCOC charter to the board, so hopefully they can be approved at the upcoming board meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Joe, and thank Dan for excellent job he's done. Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Good.
Take care. Bye-bye.